The first time Eliza Montgomery warned me not to stay the night, I thought she was just being dramatic. "If I stay tonight, I don't trust myself I won't be here in the morning," she'd said, her voice barely above a whisper as she stared out the penthouse window at the glittering Manhattan skyline. I'd nodded, pretending to understand what my billionaire boss meant. But I didn't. Not then. How could I have known that those words would change everything between us? That they would be the beginning of a story neither of us was prepared for? My name is Sophie Chen, and for 3 years I've been the personal assistant to one of the most powerful women in the business world. This is the story of how I fell in love with my boss, and how she nearly destroyed both of us trying to run from her own heart. The Montgomery name was synonymous with old money and new innovation. Eliza had transformed her family's aging manufacturing empire into a tech conglomerate worth billions before her 30th birthday. The business world called her the Ice Queen, brilliant but cold, demanding perfection from everyone around her, especially herself. The tabloids tracked her brief, calculated relationships with equally powerful men and women, relationships that never lasted more than a few months. No one got close to Eliza Montgomery. No one saw behind the mask. Except me. I still remember my first day, trembling in my discount store blazer as I rode the private elevator to the top floor of Montgomery Tower. The HR director had warned me that I was the 6th assistant in 8 months. "Ms. Montgomery has exacting standards," she'd said with a tight smile. "Try to last the week." I lasted 3 years. I became the person who knew when Eliza needed coffee and when she needed space. I learned to read the microscopic shifts in her expression that signaled approval or disappointment. I memorized the names of her favorite architects and the wines she preferred with different meals. I became indispensable. What I never planned on was becoming necessary to her in a different way. The night everything changed was ordinary at first. We were working late, preparing for a crucial board meeting the next morning. Rain lashed against the floor-to-ceiling windows of her office as we reviewed presentation slides. Eliza had been more tense than usual all week, snapping at executives and disappearing for long stretches without explanation. "This slide is wrong," she said, jabbing a manicured finger at my laptop screen. "The projections are too conservative. We need to show more ambition." "The finance team said these were the most realistic numbers," I replied, keeping my voice even. I'd learned early on that someone needed to stand their ground with Eliza, or she'd steamroll over everyone. She ran a hand through her dark hair, disheveling its perfect arrangement. "Realistic isn't inspiring, Sophie. I didn't build this company by being realistic. You also didn't build it by presenting fantasy numbers to your board," I countered, then held my breath. Even after 3 years, challenging her directly was risky. To my surprise, she laughed, a genuine sound I rarely heard. "God, what would I do without you?" she asked, and there was something in her voice I'd never heard before. Vulnerability. The power went out an hour later. The backup generators kicked in for essential systems, but we were advised not to use the elevators. The storm had intensified, and reports of flooding in lower Manhattan were coming in. "You should stay," Eliza said, looking out at the deluge. "I have a guest room. It's not safe to try getting home tonight." I'd never been to her penthouse apartment, though I'd arranged countless deliveries and services for it. The thought of crossing that boundary made me nervous in ways I couldn't articulate. "I'll be fine," I insisted. "I can call a car service." Eliza turned to me, her expression unreadable in the dim emergency lighting. "Please stay, Sophie. I don't want to be responsible if something happens to you." So I stayed. And that was the beginning of the end of the life I had carefully constructed. Her penthouse was exactly what you'd expect from a billionaire's home, minimalist, expensive, and impersonal. Like a museum where someone happened to sleep. The only surprise was a small room filled with plants, an indoor garden bursting with life and color that seemed completely at odds with the sterile perfection of the rest of the space. My mother loved gardening, Eliza said quietly when she caught me staring. I kill everything I touch, but I keep trying. We drank wine, an obscenely expensive Bordeaux she opened as casually as I would open a can of soda. The power remained out, so we lit candles, their flickering light softening the sharp angles of her face. Without the constant interruptions of emails and calls, without the roles of boss and assistant clearly defined by her desk between us, we were just two women talking in the dark. She told me about her childhood in the shadow of the Montgomery legacy. About her father's coldness and her mother's fragility. About the weight of expectations that had been placed on her shoulders since before she could walk. I was never allowed to fail, she said, staring into her wine glass. Not even once. Not even in small ways. That sounds lonely, I said. Her eyes met mine. It was. It is. I told her about growing up in Queens, the daughter of Chinese immigrants who worked 18-hour days at their restaurant. About my scholarship to NYU, about being the first in my family to graduate college. About the weight of my own family's expectations, so different from hers yet somehow the same. We're not so different, she said, reaching out to touch my hand. Her fingers were cool against my skin. We're completely different, I laughed. You're a billionaire, and I'm someone who understands what it means to carry the hopes of others, she interrupted. Someone who sees me. The air between us changed, charged with something I was afraid to name. I stood abruptly, nearly knocking over my wine glass. I should get some sleep, I said. Big meeting tomorrow. Eliza's expression shuddered, the vulnerability vanishing as quickly as it had appeared. Of course. The guest room is down the hall on the right. There should be everything you need. I thanked her and retreated, my heart pounding in my chest. I lay awake for hours in the luxurious guest bed, replaying our conversation, wondering if I had imagined the moment between us. I must have fallen asleep eventually, because I woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows. For a moment, I was disoriented, then remembered where I was. I checked my phone, 6:30 a.m. Early, but not too early to leave without seeming rude. I found a note in the kitchen, written in Eliza's precise handwriting, had to go in early. Coffee in the pot. Car waiting for you downstairs at 8 m. She was gone. And somehow, I knew she had fled. The board meeting that day was a triumph. Eliza was at her commanding best, dazzling the board with her vision and confidence. She treated me exactly as she always had, with professional courtesy and the casual disregard of someone who knows you'll anticipate their needs. If anyone had seen us together, they would never have guessed that anything had changed. But I knew. I saw the way she carefully avoided meeting my eyes. The way she kept physical distance between us. The way she made sure we were never alone. A week passed this way. Then 2. Our working relationship continued smoothly on the surface, but the easy rapport we had built over 3 years was gone. I told myself it was better this way. Safer. I was her employee, not her friend, and certainly not anything more. Then came the Tokyo trip. It was supposed to be routine, a series of meetings with potential Japanese investors. I had arranged everything meticulously, as always. Separate hotel rooms. Detailed itineraries. All the buffers and boundaries that defined our professional relationship. The first night in Tokyo, after a long day of meetings, Eliza knocked on the door connecting our hotel rooms. When I opened it, she was still in her business suit, though she had removed her jacket and loosened the silk blouse at her throat. I can't sleep, she said simply. Jet lag. I nodded, stepping back to let her in. My room was identical to hers, but somehow her presence made it feel smaller. The meetings went well today, I said, falling back on work as a safe topic. They did. She paced to the window, looking out at the Tokyo skyline. Tanaka-san was impressed with your Japanese. 3 years of college classes finally paying off, I smiled. She turned to face me. Why do you stay, Sophie? The question caught me off guard. What do you mean? With me. As my assistant. You're smart, capable, multilingual. You could be doing so much more than managing my calendar and dealing with my moods. I considered deflecting with a joke, but something in her expression stopped me. I believe in what you're building, I said honestly. And I'm good at my job. Is that all? My heart raced. What else would there be? She moved closer, close enough that I could smell her perfume, something expensive and subtle that I'd helped her assistant before me select years ago. If I stay tonight, she said softly, I don't trust myself I won't be your boss in the morning. The words hung between us, impossible to misunderstand. I should have stepped back. I should have reminded her of all the reasons this was a terrible idea, workplace power dynamics, professional boundaries, the tabloids that would have a field day if they ever found out. Instead, I kissed her. For one terrifying moment, she was still against me, and I thought I had catastrophically misunderstood. Then her hands were in my hair, and she was kissing me back with an intensity that took my breath away. We shouldn't, I whispered against her mouth. I know, she agreed, already unbuttoning my blouse. We fell into my hotel bed, all caution abandoned. Her hands and mouth were everywhere, learning me with the same focused attention she brought to everything that mattered to her. I discovered that the Ice Queen melted beautifully, that the controlled, composed woman the world knew could come apart in my arms, crying out my name like a prayer. Afterward, she lay with her head on my chest, her dark hair spilling across my skin. I traced patterns on her bare shoulder, marveling at the softness of her. What happens now? I asked, afraid of the answer but more afraid of not knowing. She was quiet for so long I thought she might have fallen asleep. Then she said, I don't know. I've never done this before. Had sex with an employee? I tried to keep my tone light. She propped herself up on one elbow to look at me, her expression serious. Wanted someone I couldn't have. You're Eliza Montgomery, I said. You can have anything you want. She shook her head. Not this. Not you. Not without consequences. What consequences are you afraid of? She sat up, pulling the sheet around her like armor. The board would have a field day. The press would be worse. They'd say I was taking advantage of you. Or that you were sleeping your way to the top. They'd reduce everything you've accomplished to who you're sleeping with. Since when do you care what people say? I challenged. I don't. But you should. She got out of bed, gathering her scattered clothes. Your career would be tainted by association with me. Every achievement questioned. I watched her dress, feeling the distance between us growing with each button she fastened. Shouldn't that be my decision to make? She paused, her back to me. You don't understand what it's like, Sophie. The scrutiny. The judgment. The loss of privacy. So explain it to me. She turned, fully dressed now, once again the untouchable Eliza Montgomery. I can't do this. We can't do this. It was a mistake. The words hit like a physical blow. A mistake, I repeated. You know what I mean. A lapse in judgment. We were both tired, far from home. Stop. I got out of bed, not caring about my nakedness. Don't diminish this. Don't diminish me. Her expression softened. I'm not. I'm trying to protect you. I don't need your protection. I need your honesty. She looked away. The truth is, I'm not built for this. For feelings. For relationships. I never have been. That's not true, I said. I've seen you, Eliza. The real you. Not the Ice Queen, not the Montgomery heir. You. And what if that's not enough, she asked, her voice barely audible. What if I'm not enough? Before I could answer, she was gone, the connecting door closing firmly behind her. The rest of the Tokyo trip was a masterclass in professional detachment. Eliza was polite, efficient, and completely closed off. We attended meetings, made presentations, smiled for photographs, and never once acknowledged what had happened between us. When we returned to New York, I seriously considered resigning. But something stopped me, pride, maybe, or the stubborn belief that what we had felt that night in Tokyo was real, not just a lapse in judgment. So I stayed. I did my job. I maintained the fiction that nothing had changed. Until the night of the charity gala. The Montgomery Foundation's annual gala was the social event of the season, bringing together the elite of New York society to raise money for educational initiatives in underserved communities. As Eliza's assistant, I had organized every detail, from the seating arrangements to the menu to the auction items. What I hadn't planned for was Eliza arriving with a date, Richard Harrington, the handsome CEO of a rival tech company. The gossip columns had been speculating about a merger between their companies for months. Now it seemed they might be merging more than their business interests. I watched from the sidelines as Eliza worked the room, her hand resting casually on Richard's arm. She was wearing a black gown that exposed the elegant line of her back, a back I had traced with my fingertips in Tokyo. She was laughing at something Richard said, tilting her head in that way she had when she was genuinely amused. "You okay?" asked Michael, Eliza's head of PR and one of the few people at Montgomery Corp I considered a friend. "You look like you want to murder someone with that champagne flute." I forced a smile. "Just tired. It's been a long week of preparation." He followed my gaze to Eliza and Richard. "Ah. The power couple of the year. Good for optics, don't you think?" "Is that what it is? Optics?" Michael shrugged. "With Eliza, who knows? But the board loves it. Montgomery and Harrington Technologies joining forces would be a Wall Street wet dream." I excused myself, needing air. The ballroom of the Plaza Hotel suddenly felt suffocating. I found my way to a small balcony overlooking Fifth Avenue, the cool October air a relief against my flushed skin. "Hiding from your own party?" Eliza's voice came from behind me. I turned to find her standing in the doorway, silhouetted against the golden light from inside. "Just taking a break," I said. "You should get back to your date." She stepped onto the balcony, letting the door close behind her. "Richard isn't my date." "Not really. It's complicated." "It always is with you," I said, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. She moved to stand beside me at the railing, close enough that I could feel the warmth of her body. "I'm sorry about Tokyo," she said quietly. "About how I handled things." "Which part? Sleeping with me or running away afterward?" She winced. "I deserve that." "You deserve a lot of things, Eliza. But I'm not sure I'm one of them." She turned to face me fully then. "That's just it. You deserve better than what I can give you. Better than secrets and complications and public scrutiny. Why don't you let me decide what I deserve?" I challenged. "Because I'm afraid," she admitted, the words seeming to surprise her as much as they did me. "I'm afraid of wanting something, someone, so much that losing them would destroy me." The raw honesty in her voice took my breath away. "Eliza. No, let me finish. I've spent my entire life building walls. Protecting myself. The Montgomery name comes with expectations, with responsibilities. I was taught from childhood that personal desires were secondary to the family legacy. That showing emotion was weakness. That's a lonely way to live," I said softly. "It is. But it's safe." She reached out, her fingers brushing mine on the railing. "Then you came along, with your competence and your kindness and your refusal to be intimidated by me. And suddenly safe wasn't enough anymore."